At one point, we finally ended up with 80 people. When we were working for B.A.R.T, at one point, Don Evans from Worcester Worcester Bernardian Evans and I were asked to do the site planning for the B.A.R.T system, where it goes and how it goes and so forth. It was as a result of that that I designed Motation, actually, so that I could write scores. And so at that time, we had to have a lot of people, or thought we did. At one point, somewhere down the line, I decided that it was okay to have as many people as this, but in addition to the architects, I had people who were photographers, ecologists, engineers, a whole range and diversity of people. And that was the most interesting part of it. And I remember, especially here, that in the morning when I'd come to the office early, the Sutherland guy from Holland would be in there playing the flute. And this whole space, which was very tall and wonderful, would be full, almost like a church, full of the sound of his flute. And it was a wonderful way to start the day. Whereas the earliest people always understood that I was the real designer, that I was going to be in charge of all the design parts, and they would be carried it out at the end afterwards. The new people, many of them, because they had worked in a different office, would come in and assume that I was going to let them design, which wasn't the case. So I one day did what they call a deck talk. And it was at that point that I told everybody that I really didn't like where everything was going, that it had changed from a family arrangement into the kind of thing which, like skidboarding in Maryland, I didn't want to have that anymore. And so I was going to separate people out. And after I did that, which was difficult to do, I hired back a few people and got it down to 16, I think it was, something like that. But that part of it wasn't very nice. I was upset about that, and so was everybody else. But once I shifted over to public works, it required a fairly large number of people, actually, because especially when some of it was abroad. I was working in Japan at one point, in the Virgin Islands, in Jerusalem, and I had to go to those places as well. So it got to be difficult, and I didn't want to have a big office where people were partners and that they owned the office as well as I did. You know, that didn't go with me